Hey there, my name is Mackenzie and welcome to my little corner of the internet. Today is the start of a new series here on my channel and I'm very excited to be diving into this new form of content, doing J-pop deep dives and Japanese pop culture video essays. We're going to start the series off with an idol group that had an insane amount of potential to take the idol world by storm, but due to bad luck and somebody being out to get them, this group did not reach the heights that they once dreamed of. This group was one of the most talented groups to be in idol collective Hello Project, and honestly, I'm still not over this one. I'm really not. Welcome to episode 1 of my Let's Talk J-pop deep dive series. Our topic today is Kobushi Factory. On January 2nd, 2015, idol company Hello Project announced the formation of a new group made up of trainees from Hello Project's trainee program, Hello Project Kenshusei, at the opening show of the Hello Project 2015 winter concert tour. The members were Fuji Ryo, Hirose Ayaka, Nomura Minami, Ogawa Rena, Hamaura Ayano, Taguchi Natsumi, Wara Sakurako, and Inoue Rei. It was noted at the time that this lineup was subject to change. With all members being born between 1999 and 2001, Kobushi Factory was the first group to have all of its members born after the formation of the company in 1998. The group was filled with members of different tenure levels within the Kenshusei program. Ayaka and Rei were previously members of the Nice Girl Project Kenshusei, which was a side project formed by Hello Project's founder and producer Tsunku-san, and had only been a part of the Hello Project Kenshusei program for a month at this point, so both those girls were rather unknown by the fanbase. Hamaura and Taguchi had the longest tenure, with both having joined in February of 2011. The others fell into the timeline at various other points, but many of the girls had a history of winning or being runner-ups in Hello Project's yearly trainee recital, with the exception of the Nice Girl Project girls because they had not been in the program long enough to participate in one. This group was met with a lot of excitement from fans right out of the gate, as many of these girls were fan favorites. Hamaura was the most popular of the bunch. She was the one that everyone expected would be the ace of the group, and fans would joke for weeks that the group was going to be named after her until the name was finally announced. The group was said to be a spiritual successor to veteran Hello Project group Berry's Kobo, who had announced their hiatus, which was basically a soft disbandment. They just didn't want to call it that, but it was what it was, in August of 2014. Captain of Berry's Kobo, Shimizuzaki, who held an advisor role within the agency starting in February, helped decide the group's name. I couldn't find any evidence that she also helped to select the members themselves. I could have swore that that was a thing, but I think it was just the name that she helped decide on. I don't think they gave her a much more of an advisory role other than that. The word kobushi comes from the Japanese magnolia, as well as being the word for fist. It was supposed to represent both the grace of the spring flower as well as the strength of a closed fist. In the language of flowers, the magnolia is said to represent the words friendship, trust, and welcome, carrying the meaning that the girls will deepen their friendship and have trust in each other, aiming to be a group that is welcomed by lots of people. How nice. The word factory comes from kobo in Berry's Kobo, as kobo means workshop or factory. It's actually pretty funny to see the girls' reactions to their name. Hamaura and Taguchi were cracking up over it, and that was quite funny. Kobushi is the name of Taguchi's dog, so it's just kind of a funny coincidence. I don't know if the staff knew that or not. I think that was purely coincidental, but anyway. The fan reactions were very mixed on the name. Some fans liked the connection to berries, and others had wished that the group had been given the opportunity for a fresh start with their own identity to form their own history and legacy around. I was just relieved that the name wasn't up there with some of the worst names this company has ever given groups. Like, I swear to God, the list is long, okay? It could have been worse than this. Many of the girls were fans of berries themselves, so they also didn't really seem to mind the connection either. Fans did not have to worry about this group being overshadowed by the berries connection because, boy, was this group gonna create a legacy all their own. During the Hello Project Kenshusei Happyokai 2015 concert on March 8th, Hirose Ayaka was announced as the leader, with Fuji Ryo being given the role of sub-leader. Now, this is where we're going to start to see some of those cracks forming in the foundation of the group that would later lead to future turmoil. For those who are unfamiliar with how Hello Project works, the role of leader is a bit of a case-by-case situation. The rules around it are a little bit vague. In the case of groups with static lineups, whose members are all on the same level of seniority within the group, like Berry's Kobo and Kyuto, it went to the eldest in age. When it comes to groups with rotational lineups and generations like Morning Musume, it was historically given to the eldest member of the oldest generation, which was usually pretty easy because the members in more recently added generations were rarely older than the members who had joined before them. Basically, the leader position was always given to the eldest in age and the most senior member. Sometimes this didn't work well, and they had to do it based on company seniority, like when 6th gen member Fujimoto Miki got the leadership over 5th gen Takashi Ai, as she had spent time as a soloist prior to being added to Momusu. This happened again when 9th generation Fukumura got leadership over 10th generation Ikubo Haruna, who was older in age but had a shorter tenure within the company. In other cases, like Juice Juice, who formed in 2013, the members were given their roles based on age rather than seniority. This is all to say that Hello Project's history with leadership roles and who gets them is complicated and sometimes unclear. In the case of Kobushi, Fuji was older, but Hirose had the longest tenure if you're including Nice Girl Project. Fuji officially joined Hello Project in May of 2013, whereas Hirose had joined NGP in September 2011. She also attended many events as a representative of the project, giving her extra experience points. During the announcement of leadership, Fuji breaks down into tears, indicating that this news wasn't relayed to the girls beforehand and they were not prepared for this announcement. They're usually not. They like to have that shock factor and like the very natural reactions of the girls to like big news and stuff, but this is kind of one of those cases where it sort of backfires on them because seeing a member genuinely upset actually just makes the fans uncomfortable and feel bad for them. Following the concert, Fuji wrote a very disgruntled blog post expressing frustration at the leadership decision, seeming to think that the eldest member is always the leader of a group despite past evidence to the contrary, as we discussed. She seemed to think she was a shoo-in and also claimed she felt led on by the staff. That last claim is not completely unfounded, to be fair. Many fans felt the same way. She was the member leading the announcements, the group introductions and discussion, which is something that the leaders usually do. It's more likely that the staff were testing her as leader and for whatever reason decided that Hirose was the better choice, likely due to stuff backstage and behind the scenes that we don't get to see as fans. It's a title in name only anyway, so like it really honestly doesn't matter technically, but it probably felt like a pretty big deal to a 14-year-old girl. It's important to note here that Fuji was also a massive fan of Kyuto leader Yajima Maimi, even going so far as to preserve one of her used food containers that she took during a rehearsal. So that may have been a huge reason why the leader position was so important to her, as she just so badly wanted to be like her most admired senpai. This will be important to the story later, so we'll be coming back around to that bit of information in a bit. Moving on from the leadership debacle. After the group's formation, Hamaura expressed her hopes that the group would become the most famous within Hello Project, and Wada would say that she hoped to follow the group's senior, Berry's Kobo, by lasting more than 10 years, which was a very rare feat for idol groups with fixed members. This is such a sad statement to read now in hindsight, like honestly. Kobushi's first project post-formation was a musical called Weekend Survivor, which they starred in alongside Berry's member Suromasa. They released their first DVD single and only indies release, Nen ni wa Nen Survivor, on March 26th at the musical venue, with Survivor being the tie-in song to that musical. It's interesting to note here that Hello Project has never translated group names before, but Kobushi is often given an English version of their name on their promotional material, probably to make sure that people knew it was Kobushi as in the flower and not the fist. It's a little ironic though, because the girls themselves really lean into the fist side of things, but we'll get to that in a bit. Over the spring, they performed as the opening act for multiple Hello Project groups, as well as headlined a joint live with fellow new groups Country Girls and Kobushi Factory to introduce the new generation of Hello Project that had been unveiled that winter. I'll be doing a video on Kobushi Factory as well as both groups together, at some point in the future, so I'm not going to talk about them too much here. On June 14th, it was announced that the group would release their major debut single, a triple A-side release, in early September.
デビューシングルの発売日はせーの9月2日ですイエーイ
This would be a great head start for the group, selling almost 50,000 copies, and it would be their best-selling single to date. At the time of release, it very much kind of felt like this was a good sign that the group was going to be successful because they did so well for their first release, but alas, well, you're gonna see. They spent the second half of the year headlining more concerts with their sister group, performing at several idol events, and embarking on their first tour, Kobushi Factory Live Tour 2015, The First Ring, which would run from November until January. At the end of the year, the girls were nominated and won the Best Newcomer Award at the 57th Japan Record Awards. They also won the R Grand Prix Best Performance Award, selected by Tower Records president Minawaki Ikuo in December to close off the year. This guy was known for being a huge Hamaura fan, so that Hama-chan ace effect is coming in clutch once again. The day before the final show of the tour, the group officially left the Kenjusei and became full-fledged Hello Project members. I'm not quite sure why this was delayed so long. It kind of felt like they should have done it immediately after their major debut release, but anyway, better late than never, I guess. The fandom name was announced by the members on their blogs in late December as Kobushi Gumi. Gumi is used as a suffix to indicate a group, often used by Yakuza crime groups. Hirose was called boss rather than leader to further tie this in. I thought it was so cute and just a really great demonstration of how goofy these girls were. And of course, they also had the fist as their introductory pose thing that they do. So you can kind of see how even though the Magnolia was meant to be what they were technically called, Magnolia Factory, they definitely leaned into that rough, tough, edgy kind of thing going on. I forgot to mention their singing style here originally, but I absolutely have to add this in even if it extends the video length because it's an important part of the group's character and identity. Following in Barry's footsteps, Kobushi also had a more unorthodox music style that leaned more goofy and fun, but with a touch of edginess to them that set them apart from Barry's and also most of the current Hello Project lineup. The way they went about highlighting this is kind of funny, as rather than just having the music be a bit edgier itself, they had the girls grunt while singing on almost every single track. If you know anything about how the Yakuza are portrayed in Japanese media and the rough, growled speech that usually comes up when someone is trying to act tough in Japanese, then this will feel pretty familiar as it directly connects to that stereotype. This could sometimes sound okay on recordings, but live it could sometimes come off pretty rough as the girls couldn't always execute this well. A lot of fans found this off-putting or overdone on some tracks, or felt that this feature straight up ruined otherwise good songs. I'm personally mixed on this, as I feel it does add character to some songs, but in others, especially when performed live, like Choto, it overstays its welcome and can get pretty annoying. But this is a core feature of the group that existed from start to finish and is a characteristic of Kobushi that sets them apart from other groups in the company, so it felt important to mention it. Anyway, back to the video. 2016 came in hot with the girls performing at multiple idol events and finishing off their first tour at the end of January. They released their second single in February, continued attending various idol events into the spring months, in the summer released their third single and partnered with a big idol contest event as its official supporters, and then in the fall they became the hosts of a corner on a multi-network music program. It was a pretty big year for them, and they were really just building that momentum and truly seemed unstoppable if the company played their cards right. Which, if you know anything about Hello Project, you know they're not going to. Things slowed down a little for the group outside of Hello Project concert tours until 2017 came rolling in, with the group starring in another musical called JK Ninja Girls from late February until early March. This musical would be adapted into a movie that released theatrically on July 17th, with the girls reprising their roles for that film. Their fourth single would release in June ahead of the movie, with one of the songs being the movie's theme song. Unfortunately, this year would be the group's worst, going on to be known as Kobushimageddon amongst fans. It all starts on May 12th with the announcement that sub-leader Fuji will be graduating from the group and Hello Project as a whole at the end of the 2017 Hello Project summer concert tour in early September. Fuji said in her own announcement post that she wanted to pursue being a nurse or a teacher, and as she was known for being one of Hello Project's most academically inclined members, with her graduation from high school on the horizon, this made a lot of sense. Many girls are idols in their teens as a sort of recreational activity, and then they graduate ahead of uni entrance exams so they can focus on their education for a non-entertainment career. For most teen idols in Japan, being an idol is like a fun side thing, like an extracurricular activity after school, rather than a full career path. This was surprising to fans in the sense that no one thought any of these girls would be piecing out so soon after debut, but Fuji wasn't necessarily a super popular member, so her departure from the group wasn't necessarily a strong hit to them. It's interesting to note that Berry's Kobo also had a member leave, Maiha. They started out with 8 members, they dropped down to 7 around the same time period, like around 2 years or so into the group's formation, and she also left for school reasons, and she also wasn't particularly popular. So it was almost kind of weird how much this lined up. At this point, Kobushi was almost following in Berry's footsteps, almost step for step. Fans weren't really that surprised. It was just kind of like, that sucks, you know? But I think for a lot of fans, they thought that this meant that Kobushi would continue as 7 and it would be smooth sailing from there, in the same way that it was for Berry's. What did shock fans though was when on July 6th, an update on the Hello Project website announced that Fuji's contract with Upfront Promotion had been terminated due to her lack of compliance with the rules. According to insider info leaked to the media, Fuji's behavior was adversely affecting other members, with her missing work and not showing up for rehearsals, which can be confirmed by her lack of appearance during rehearsal footage for the Hello Project summer concert tour. There's a lot of small points to make with Fuji here, and honestly, I don't even really know where to begin. Fuji was often shafted in the group. She received less solo lines than other members and less screen time in music videos and such, and that may have made her more bitter over time after she already had that issue with the leadership, and that already would have put her in a kind of bitter place, and then kind of being shafted to the side for a lot of the group stuff probably worsened that. As mentioned before, she was also a huge fan of Kyuto's Yajima Maimi, and Fuji had expressed deep sadness when Kyuto had announced their disbandment in late 2016, set for June of 2017. So with Maimi no longer being an idol, Fuji expressed that she felt unmotivated to continue on herself, which may have played a larger role in her own graduation announcement and lack of willingness to participate in group activities. It seems to me that the Ninja Girls promotions were also probably an issue. Like, she may have left sooner if she didn't have the movie and all of its promotional stuff to do. It would have been kind of awkward if she left the group during the movie filming, or even more so during the promotional period for that movie that she's in. It seems the Hello Project wanted her to stay on long enough to just finish that job off, but she wanted to leave sooner, and so she acted in a way that gave them no choice but to let her go. This is not an unusual situation for Hello Project. That tactic has been used by many former Hello Project members before Fuji. It will be used by many girls after her, but I think it was just kind of sad to see it play out that way. Fuji's departure could have gone on to be a minor hiccup for the group's history, but they took another hit when on July 13th, just 1 week after Fuji's official contract termination, Ogawa was announced to be taking a break due to anxiety neurosis. This wasn't super unusual at the time, as Hello Project had a lot of members diagnosed with that same thing before and after Ogawa, and they were just put on break and then would return when they were better, so fans weren't initially alarmed by this. The group appeared on Ongaku no Hi 2017 in a pre-recorded performance as part of a special unit featuring several Hello Project groups to represent the company on the 15th of July, and it was the first public appearance without Fuji and Ogawa. Later in July, things would get worse for Ogawa when pictures of her and a boy taken in April were leaked. Now listen, I could go off on a whole thing about idols and dating and where things stand, but founder and former producer Tsuki-san had said in an interview that the company was and is aware of the girls dating, and they don't care what they do in their personal lives as long as it's not harmful or illegal. If they get caught, they were often punished to satisfy the fans, like putting them in the back of the group pictures or giving them less lines and screen time for the following release, but there was no attempt to restrict them otherwise. We could talk about how doing so is against international human rights laws, and companies who violate this are Black companies who are already doing all kinds of other illegal shit anyway. This isn't even the worst thing they're doing. And we could talk about how these are grown adult men over the age of 40 crying online about teenage girls that they probably shouldn't be allowed within 100 feet of, but I'll digress. Hello Project themselves released a statement at this time that unfortunately I cannot find for the freaking life of me, which basically sums up to grow the fuck up. In mid-August, the company gave a brief update that Ogawa would continue her hiatus a little longer as her condition hadn't improved. Fans were quick to speculate that this was a punishment for the dating situation, or at least an attempt to give it time to blow over before she would return to the group. Some wondered if she had been suffering from those anxiety problems over the last few months because she knew that these photos were going to be leaked. Like she was just dreading it and just waiting, like not knowing when that shoe was going to drop. On September 6th, it was announced that Ogawa had decided to graduate from Kobushi Factory and Hello Project without a ceremony after her condition failed to improve. This was the reason given anyway, but things quickly got kind of confusing when Ogawa started posting publicly to social media in what seemed to me at the time to be a bit of a mental health crisis. Starting in late November, Ogawa would post to Twitter that she had a boyfriend and that she loved him very much and said that she'd like to freely post pictures of the two moving forward. This on its own is not necessarily scandalous per se, but it left fans wondering if the real reason that she left was because she wanted to pursue this relationship away from her idol limitations. Within a few days, she would be posting videos to Line Live of her and her boyfriend kissing, Ogawa adjusting her shirt to like reveal hickeys on her chest, and just like behaving like a cam girl, as a lot of fans would word it at the time. She would do a live, give her boyfriend time to like show up, and then she'd end the recording and then start it again like an hour later and like be adjusting her shirt to kind of reveal that she's no longer wearing the bra she adjusted and showed you earlier, like as if like, you know, within that hour it got removed. She was just doing usual stupid shit on the internet that 17-year-olds do when they're trying to get attention and rile people up. It's really not anything like out of the ordinary for her age range, but this had people just losing their shits on the internet, analyzing the crap out of this stuff. She would make posts from time to time thereafter that seemed to be shading either the fans or her former group mates, which wasn't cool, making vague remarks about various things. But I guess eventually she got sick of fans like screenshotting what she was posting and like talking about it on fan forums and saying shit about her and whatever, so she just privated her Twitter. The following March, she would tweet about her boyfriend breaking up with her until she changes, whatever that means, and would also express that she felt sad while watching a video, which a lot of fans thought was probably the new Kobushi music video that had released shortly before this. Okay, that's enough about Ogawa, but we are going to be coming back to her occasionally from here on. Rewinding back to earlier in the year for a moment, the group's first manager left in January. Takechi was extremely upset about this, to the extent that she couldn't bring herself to update her blog on the 2nd, and talked about the loss of their manager for several days on her blog thereafter. Their manager seemed to have been somewhat of a mother figure to her, and someone that she was particularly close with previous blog entries showing photos of her sleeping on their manager's lap and stuff of that nature. Later in March, during the final performance of the JK Ninja Girls, Taguchi could not stop crying on stage. This girl was a mess during the final MC segment at the end of the show. It got to the point that leader Hirose had to step in and move things along more than once, as Taguchi would continue to talk while not making much of a point. She was just kind of talking in circles. Hirose would gently cut in, only for Taguchi to do it again. It's moments like this that I can see why Hirose was leader. She seemed good at not only taking on responsibility and being professional, she also did it with a gentleness that I think members like Taguchi really needed from her. In mid-August, Taguchi posted a concerning entry on her blog detailing an argument that she had with her parents that ended in her running away from home, posting the blog while hanging out at a park late in the night. Many fans were concerned and posted on fan forums about how the company should really be doing a better job about censoring these sorts of posts, especially for Taguchi, because it seemed that this isn't even the first time that she's vented about a fight with her parents. This was kind of a regular thing over the last few months. Others made jokes that it probably wasn't even as big of a deal as she was making it sound, considering that Taguchi seems to be very sensitive and the type to blow things out of proportion as a result. In October, on an episode of The Girls Live, which was a Hello Project show, Taguchi got emotional while talking about Ogawa's departure. It was clear that she was very sad about losing so many people and her environment changing so much in such a short period of time. It's actually interesting that they even aired this discussion, because usually Hello Project members aren't allowed to talk about former members after they've left, especially if they've left under negative circumstances, or in this case are behaving badly after they've left and making the group look bad in the media, which Ogawa was doing during this time. So not sure when this episode would have been filmed, but it's interesting that they let this slide because Hello Project's usually a little more locked down than that. At some point in the autumn as well, I couldn't find a date for it or any video footage of this actually. It's lost to time, unfortunately, just like a lot of what we're talking about. But Ogawa started a line live while walking outside and held the phone up to reveal Taguchi walking along with her, and the two were giggling and all smiles. Taguchi seemed really surprised once she realized that this was a live video, so I don't think that she knew that Ogawa was going to do that, and the live only lasted a few seconds. It created buzz amongst fans, which was probably exactly what Ogawa wanted it to do, but things would get worse for poor Taguchi because of it. On November 8th, photos leaked of Taguchi with a boyfriend, seeming to have leaked from said boyfriend himself, who was likely now a bitter ex. The boyfriend seemed to be a friend of Ogawa's as well. They were following each other on Twitter for a little bit there. More photos of him kissing Taguchi on the cheek would surface 2 days later. Many old and bitter fans wanted her to quit, some even calling for the disbandment of the entire group after so many back-to-back controversies. At this point, fans were just kind of bewildered as to how this just kept repeatedly like back-to-back hits, to the extent that some were wondering if this was a targeted attack by somebody who knew the girls personally, a classmate, a friend, a fellow Hello Project member, a bitter former Kobushi member perhaps. Fans were also quick to point out the fighting that had been going on between Taguchi and her parents, wondering if the boyfriend was the topic of discussion during these heated conversations that they were having. In late November, during Morning Musume's Budokan performances, where Kobushi Factory were the opening act, Taguchi was not present for either date, claiming on her blog it was due to school. She was continuing to blog as usual and everything seemed fine, giving fans hope that the company was simply waiting for this issue to just blow over and they would continue as normal with a fresh start in the new year. And then their hopes were smashed on December 6th. Because everything has to happen on the 6th with this group, an update was posted to Hello Project's website informing fans that Taguchi's contract with Upfront Promotion had been terminated due to her lack of self-consciousness and responsibility as a member of Kobushi Factory. This time they also had leader Hirose make a statement as well, which was really sad to read. Before moving on, I'd like to point out that there was so much going on behind the scenes this year in particular that it's likely the photos were not the reason for her departure. It was stated that the staff had multiple conversations with Taguchi and her parents over the last several months, meaning that these discussions predated the photo leaks. This poor girl had been through a lot, with a trusted adult leaving the group early in the year, being clearly emotionally overwhelmed during the end of the JK Ninja Girls musical. Around that same time period, they would have already been having issues with Fuji, and it may have caused fighting and issues amongst the members that were having to pick up her slack and so on. She was very close with Ogawa, so seeing her struggle with her anxiety issues and then depart from the group the way that she did was probably really hard for her. Fighting with her parents for months, potential issue with the boyfriend, and struggling with wanting to be an idol and also wanting to be a normal human 17-year-old girl with grown men trying to police who she spends her time with outside of her job and harassing her online endlessly, and the resentment and the confusion that probably would have come from all of that, like, that's a lot. And that's just from what we know. Like, that's not even including the stuff that was happening that we're not privy to as fans. Given the statement that she had a lack of self-consciousness and responsibility, she may have simply been pulling a Fuji and just not taking her job seriously. Kobushi had a concert tour during that time, and she may have had a bad attitude during rehearsals, being uncooperative with staff and other members, putting little effort into performances, and given how upset she was about Ogawa's departure, she may have been acting out since at least July as a rebellious stance against the way Ogawa's situation was handled, which we really don't actually know if she left of her own accord or not. The company and Taguchi's parents may have requested that she break up with boyfriend in order to prevent more issues like what happened with Ogawa, and maybe she did break up with boyfriend, and that left him bitter enough to enact revenge on her by leaking those private photos. There's also the possibility that the company told the girls to not have contact with former members, and that's something they have done in the past with other groups, so that would not be unusual. And Taguchi was clearly continuing to have contact with both Fuji and Ogawa, and that may have been in violation of an agreement that they had in place. There's really no way to know for sure, but Ogawa and Taguchi's departures are definitely connected at the very least. Her accidentally on purpose Line Live moment with Ogawa was said by insiders close to the members and staff to have caused the most damage, as they did that on their own without permission. Line was at the time the only social media that the girls were allowed to have, and it was heavily restricted by the staff. Nakajima, host of Totsugeki Moicho, a popular idol talk show many Hello Project members and groups have made appearances on, was given advance notice of Taguchi's departure from the group. He implied that the company is rather lenient with dating in general, but Taguchi herself felt guilty and confessed to them about the boyfriend and requested to be let go. Apparently, she had told Nakajima personally to come to Kobushi's show at Shinjuku Reni or else he might regret it, and she wasn't her usual goofy self during her conversation with him, so he knew something was up prior to the news breaking. In Taguchi's final blog post before the announcement, she talked about the members, stating, "Ayapan will protect me, Nomu is my son, Hama-chan is a special generation mate, Sako is my moral support, Rei is so incredibly cute." She went on to say that sometimes I make even enemies that I do not have to make, and if you walk a normal life, you will not have much love pouring from so many people, seemingly reflecting on the ending of her career that she knew was coming. After Taguchi's departure from the group, leader Hirose took the news very hard and blamed herself, writing on her blog, "And to have such a companion to leave the group in such a way, I find this myself to be really regrettable and deplorable. As the leader, I feel totally responsible for having continuous news that has saddened everyone over the last several months. As the leader, I feel lonely and frustrated, and I am deeply sorry for all the fans." Refunds were offered for the bus tour that was to take place the following weekend, but it did go on as planned. The following Monday, December 9th, photos were leaked of Hirose with a guy at karaoke, once again causing fans to question if someone who knew the girls was deliberately targeting them. I can only imagine how the girls themselves felt. This must have been an absolute nightmare. I didn't have a proper place to talk about this earlier because I didn't want to stray too far from Ogawa and Taguchi, and I wanted to keep everything kind of neat and tidy so it's not all getting all muddied and complicated. But Hamauro was also the victim of a photo leak with pictures taken of her using a phone charger in a boy's bike basket back in mid-August as well. Fans weren't too worried, because this photo is a nothing burger of a photo, and also she's the group's ace, so she likely wouldn't be punished too bad for this, which is again the norm. But I am mentioning it anyway because it adds to the large pile of photos taken very closely of these girls in private settings and really hits home that this seemed like an inside job, so to speak. The group would lay low for a few months with rumors of disbandment or new members being added swirling around them until news came of a new single, the group's fifth, to be released in late March and with no changes to the lineup. The single contained songs with heartfelt and hopeful lyrics and energizing instrumentals, marking a new start for the group. They would also begin to establish a cappella as a special skill for them, which was a throwback to Barry's challenging it in the past and having that be something that they were known for amongst Hello Project fans. The girls started their first radio show that April, and in July they released a joint single with sister group Kobushi Factory as the official song for Adorosai 2018 contest that year. The group would continue to perform at idol events as usual and release another single before the end of the summer, but at the end of their autumn concert tour on November 8th, Wada would end the show in tears during the final MC, expressing gratitude for their 5-member era. The members all had ponderous blog posts that night as well, leaving fans concerned that there would be an announcement of new members joining coming in the new year. That didn't happen, and 2019 was a pretty decent year for them, with the girls gaining a Wednesday corner slot on another radio show, releasing a single in the spring, recording the 30th anniversary song for the FC Machida Zelvia team, attending various idol events as usual, and in October would release their second album and perform as guests during FC Machida Zelvia's big match that month. It wasn't a particularly outstanding year by any means, but they were still getting some pretty big gigs and continued to build recognition among idols and idol fans for being phenomenal live performers. The only way to go from here is up, baby. On July 8th, it was announced that Kobushi Factory would be disbanding on March 30th, with a concert at Tokyo Dome City Hall. This news did shock fans, obviously, who felt that Kobushi Factory were doing quite well and had successfully surpassed the turmoil that they had experienced a few years prior. Less than 24 hours before this announcement was made, because the group can't catch a freaking break, pictures had been posted on Instagram of Hamaura from behind from a guy who was apparently her boyfriend, writing in the caption how grateful he was for the last year that they'd spent together and hoping for many more happy memories to come. This caused a lot of speculation that this may be the reason that the group was disbanding, but that was quickly dispelled when more information was given regarding the disbandment decision. It was said that leader Hirose had been in discussion with the agency about her graduation since early 2019, and after discussing with the other members, it seemed that most of the members aside from Inoue wanted to pursue other things. As a result, Inoue would be continuing as a Hello Project member, Wada would be retiring, and the remaining 3 members would continue their activities under Upfront's M-Line, which is where graduated Hello Project members go to continue solo activities. Kobushi Factory performed at idol festivals and held their final fan club bus tour in February and released their final single in early March, as well as a video collection later that month. On March 23rd, due to the new restrictions placed by the government because of the ongoing COVID pandemic, the concert was announced to be with no audience, but would continue to be broadcast live on TV Asahi channel and be available for live viewing in 27 cinemas across Japan as originally planned. A few of those viewings were canceled later, but fans attended the ones they could attend to show support for the group amidst another round of bad luck. They couldn't have picked a worse year to disband. On March 29th, the day before disbandment, a 2-hour TV special about the group was aired on BS Sky Perfect TV. The girls officially disbanded at the end of their final show, titled Kobushi Factory Live 2020, The Final Ring. The agency may have wanted to announce the disbandment sooner, but they had to be considerate of the disbandment announcement for Country Girls as well as giving some of a breather room for Hello Project fans and not completely ruin their New Year holidays. It's likely that the group spent 2019 knowing it was their last year together and maybe wanting to see if Hirose would actually be accepted into the university that she applied to before formally solidifying the disbandment. So what happened to the members after that? Hirose said that she would be attending music school in April. She gained a lot of experience doing chorus work and learned a lot about writing music during her time as a member of the group, so she wanted to continue in that vein of the industry. I actually don't know if she graduated or when, because I couldn't find info on that. But after leaving Up for an agency, she continued to post to socials, starting her own YouTube channel. And had done a few plays and released an original song here or there. She produced and headlined a few live shows for indie idol groups over the last few years as well. Hirose also joined Hello Project choreographer Yoshiko's dance team in February of this year and performed with them for at least one show, but as far as I know, she doesn't seem to be a regular member. Nomura said that she wanted to go into acting and would be pursuing that goal, but didn't return to entertainment activities and remained on the down low after her graduation. In 2021, it was revealed that she was studying overseas and learning English, and in January 2023, it was confirmed that her contract with Upfront Agency had ended. It seems that her management contract had ended at some point previously, but they kept her employed in the office up until this point. And then in June of 2025, she resurfaced, appearing on the Study Abroad TV YouTube channel. So I don't know exactly what it is that she technically does now, but she's utilizing that study abroad time that she had. Hamaura enjoyed many areas of her job, so she wanted to explore all different areas of entertainment, but took a particular interest in theater acting. She stayed under Upfront Agency for a little bit, but like Hirose, she left shortly after and became a freelancer until January of 2021 when she signed with Warner Music as an actress, the first in their acting division. She would go on to do a lot of work in theater and have her own radio show where Hirose would be a guest occasionally, and despite her lack of confidence in her singing ability, in the spring of 2024, she had her major debut as a soloist and launched her YouTube channel. Inoue seemed to be the most upset in her personal statement, as she wanted to continue being an idol and was the only one remaining behind.
させていただきたいと思います。
はい。
井上レイちゃんはジュースに加入することが決定しました。これからよろしくお願いします。お願いします。早速呼び込みたいと思います。はい、どうぞ。
じらしてくるおイエーイ
新メンバーの井上レイちゃんです。
She was transferred to Juice Juice on April 1st with the intention of her officially beginning activities with the group after Miyamoto's graduation in June. But again, due to the pandemic, Miyamoto's graduation was postponed until the end of the year, leaving Inoue in somewhat of a limbo position and releasing Juice Juice covers on their YouTube channel in the meantime. She officially joined the group in December at Miyamoto's graduation concert, with her member color being Magnolia White, which really warmed my heart. I loved that. She's still a Juice Juice member to this day, and I highly recommend checking her out as she's still killing it as usual. You can take the girl out of Kobushi, but you can't take Kobushi out of the girl, I guess. Wada said in her statement regarding the disbandment that she wanted to continue being an idol as 5-member Kobushi Factory or not at all. And as the other members wanted to take on new paths, she decided that she would as well. She retired from the entertainment industry altogether and pursued university studies, although I couldn't find exactly what it is that she went to school for. As she's a private citizen now, we haven't heard much since, but according to Hirose on Twitter, she's doing well. As for the others, there's been no updates on Fuji, other than some pictures posted by friends of hers in July of 2023, and then she opened a Twitter account in June of 2025. I checked her Twitter while editing and realized that she mentions having started a salon but doesn't say what kind. Based on her posts, I'm assuming nails. She also started a TikTok account that mentions her Hello Project past in her bio and started off by posting a few bogus Candid Street interview videos. She mostly posts the usual lip syncing and hand dances that are popular on Japanese TikTok. In October of 2018, Ogawa was back in the spotlight when she announced her pregnancy, giving birth in June of 2019. She also got married sometime that January. Since the birth of her child, she has done Insta Lives from time to time, but she seems to be rather uninterested in being connected in any way to Hello Project, going so far as to block anybody that's obviously a Hello Project fan following her. As for Taguchi, she continued to be close with Ogawa, with videos being posted to Ogawa's Instagram of Taguchi playing with her baby in August of 2019. In early 2020, there was a series of tweets posted by Taguchi reflecting on what happened with Kobushi, and there were translations, but the Twitter account is unfortunately gone. It's been so hard putting this video together because everything I had is gone, but basically she had regrets about not just the way that things ended with Kobushi, but the fact that she left at all. And she confirmed that her continued association with former members did some damage that led to her departure. Since then, we've seen her do a few things here or there with Hello Project fan friends and some pictures of her out with former members, as well as photos and videos with Ogawa, but that's about it. Looking back on all of this, I think the group releasing their first album in late 2016 and then doing very little until the spring of 2017 when they did the JK Ninja Girl stuff, and its promo taking up the first half of their year really killed the group's momentum that they had been building over the last 2 years. Their sales were declining even before the scandals because of Oricon's rule changes and everything like that. The changes in the way that CD sales were counted created a decrease in idol sales in general. But if the group wasn't busy and consistent, they'd lose interest and support. There's hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of groups out there. So if there's even a slight slowdown in content from one group, it's very easy for fans to take interest in another group that is more active. With Hello Project having multiple groups under their umbrella that all work together regularly, it's very common for someone to be a fan of multiple groups, if not all of them. So if a group isn't active enough, then fans will be more focused on supporting the groups that are, or who have more of their interest and therefore priority. So for example, if multiple Hello Project groups are releasing singles within a few weeks of each other, which has happened on occasion, fans who like all of these groups will be forced to choose their favorite of the bunch to support, as they can't afford to support all of them, and this can lead to issues with sales and event attendance numbers. Kobushi's slowdown period coincides with the debut of Kobushi Factory, and Hello Project has a really poor habit of pulling back on budget for other groups to give as much attention as they can to a new debuting unit. So Kobushi Factory's push to the front definitely contributed to Kobushi's somewhat being put on the back burner, which left them a little weak in fan support when those back-to-back scandals and issues with the group damaged the trust and support that they did have. I think if the group had consistent releases between the album and the JK Ninja Girl stuff, and if the JK Ninja Girl stuff wasn't so dragged out for so long, the group may have been in a stronger place to withstand a lot of what happened to them. A lot of the issues within the group were stemming from private matters and personal feelings of the girls themselves. Fuji feeling less motivated to be an idol, Ogawa having anxiety issues and wanting to be a human outside of her job, and Taguchi losing a lot of people that she cared about in a short period of time and feeling overwhelmed by the weight of her responsibility to the group. If teenage female idols dating wasn't such a big deal to grown adult men old enough to be their dads, it's likely that Ogawa and Taguchi would have stayed and the group wouldn't have been so battered by boy drama that actually did not matter in the grand scheme of things. The group was continuously battered by private photo leaks, and the only people to give those photos any power to ruin those girls' careers were the fans themselves. Because it's been proven time and time again that the company doesn't give a shit and will not make it an issue unless the fans make it an issue. The thing that killed the group the most was the girls themselves having to choose between being idols and being humans, and the anxiety and guilt that grown men made them feel when they policed what they could do with their bodies and their hearts outside of their jobs. If the fans weren't badgering them on social media and sending them nasty messages, they likely wouldn't have felt uncomfortable enough to leave. The group losing 3 members back to back within the span of a year was a massive blow, but their inability to regain that ground that they had lost thereafter didn't help. A lack of increasing sales and a few of the girls themselves losing the heart to continue after so much turmoil understandably put the group on the path to dissolution. Hamaru would go on to say to Friday in an interview in February of 2021 that the group considered adding new members, but because Kobushi's big thing as 5 members was their a cappella work, they knew it would be difficult to restructure that to accommodate new girls. The a cappella was a skill that we had acquired as a group and grew from taking that on, but then we felt that there was a limit somewhere 10-20 years down the line, like we hadn't acquired the ability to win just on singing alone. That's when we discussed going our separate ways, gaining new experiences and acquiring those skills, and that it'd be nice to someday be able to regroup after that and become even bigger than we were at the time. We all loved Kobushi Factory, we loved the members, and we loved the songs, so in choosing the path of disbandment, it felt like we were saving away the Kobushi Factory that we loved. The idea of a Kobushi reunion is something I personally would love to see, whether it's the final 5 or the original 8 members, or somewhere in between. Although, given that the final 5 were the most serious and committed to the group, I wouldn't hold my breath for the others to come back. I think especially Fuji and Ogawa really do not want anything to do with their idol past. And Taguchi I could see maybe returning because she's the most connected out of the 3 to current Hello Project. All that is to say, I've been listening to the group again since their music was put on Spotify this year, celebrating their 10th anniversary, and I was reminded all over again how amazing the final 5 were and how much potential they had, and I feel sad that they couldn't see that themselves. I would have liked to have seen them get their second wind and take the idol world by storm, similar to senior group Kyuto, but as more time passes since their disbandment and the girls go on living their lives, I feel like their plans for a return will fizzle out as their lives and feelings change, and we'll never see that reunion happen. But a little part of me still has hope. And I think the girls keeping in touch and to this day maintaining their friendship is a pretty good sign that we may see them give Kobushi Factory a new starting line. If you liked this video and you'd like to see more content like this from me, please hit that like button and consider subscribing so that I can grow my little corner of the internet and continue to make videos like this one. In addition to videos about Japanese pop culture and entertainment, I also do art videos like paint and draw with me's, journal with me's, and cozy vlogs and haul type videos as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again real soon.